in position for timely confirmation is joining us now. Former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. He also has some news this morning that we're going to get to, and a new group aimed at advocating for pro-technology proposals. It's funny that do we need someone to advocate for that?
You know, the one thing I learned in Congress, and it's something I tried to focus on being Speaker, you get so bogged down on the day-to-day stuff, you're not looking at things a decade from now. Like, that's why I created the Select Committee on China. You know, MIT teaches a course to all the generals in our military for AI and quantum. So 3 years ago, I took 10 members and had them develop a course to teach AI and quantum to all the members in Congress. And then we reconstitute the Intel Committee so they're really focused. And when you think about where America is poised today for AI, for energy, for defense, these are things I worked on. But having served those 17 years and now being on the outside, you really need that private sector in there, that combination to make the right policies. And that's why I created the Alpha Institute. We're rolling it out today. It's based upon, when we try to go to space, if you read the right stuff, Alpha is the name of the module, the nickname, where the astronauts will go on and get trained to try to stay straight with all the gravitational pull and the pressures. And that's kind of where you are in Congress. I mean, when you think about Congress today, they're not doing President Trump a favor. They haven't finished the funding for this year. They're going into the next year where the president now has to worry about last year's funding and not being able to think for the future. We're not going to capture AI unless we change the permitting process and enhance the energy grid in America for us to win the AI battle. Defense, we're not going to stay number one unless we reform the processing of the Defense Department. These are things I worked on, but the things I've learned going on the outside, the private sector can help tremendously.
Some of those things sound like infrastructure spending. It feels like this incoming administration is going to be cutting back on some of those things, trying to be more efficient, trying to not waste, and in the process probably going to cut a lot of things. How do you get spending for initiatives like that in an environment?
You know what? You have the capital for this. The problem is not more capital. The problem is the permitting. I was having this debate with Biden when we were doing the debt ceiling. Because what happens, if you're just, the president would sit there and he'd only want renewable energy. I want all the above. But right now, nobody can get a permit to build any of it. And in the debt ceiling, we actually got a little NEPA reform, hadn't done in 40 years, and we were negotiating to do that further, treat everybody equal so you can build the pipelines, you can build the transmission lines. A lot of that is state and
local, though. How do you plan on overriding that from the federal government?
You are the federal government. To me, this is essence. Whoever captures AI and quantum really captures the future.
But again, back to this administration, it's about giving more rights back to the states, more control back to the states.
I think you could put guidelines on 50.
Federal government.
But that's why you need the combination. When I've used every single position in leadership when I served in Congress, and what I'd do is I'd take members out to Silicon Valley for 2 days. I remember taking Pompeo as a freshman, meeting at this startup across from Stanford called Palantir, right? And what happens is you get so bogged down in Congress doing the day-to-day, you're not looking at what the future is passing you by. Creating the Select Committee on China, the most bipartisan committee we've had, I thought of that by walking the 75th anniversary of Normandy with Pelosi, looking at those grave sites, wondering what could those policymakers have done that day never would have taken place. And it wasn't a year before, it was a decade before. And our dependency upon China, right, from critical minerals, from the processing, from medical supplies. Those are not partisan issues. So this is an opportunity in the Alpha Institute to actually work together on both sides to really look to America. How do we poise? Because, look, I think we're in a new industrial revolution. And I think this is, to me, I'm excited about where we are, but how do we harness that and get the right policies?
I don't like being predictable. Okay. I'm not going to focus on Matt Gaetz other than to use the same joke I used yesterday with Andrew. I didn't know what to get you for Christmas. I'm paying for a cameo greeting from Matt Gaetz for you.
Well, thank you.
And I figure you might like that. But let's not talk about that. That's history already. You said it wasn't going to happen. It didn't happen. Let's talk about
I also said early on that President Trump would be the nominee and win the presidency. And I also said right before the election, when everybody was saying the gender gap was going to put her ahead, and I told you she's behind on the gender gap than where Biden was. Yeah. I mean, to me, you saw this coming. I don't understand why.
I thought
you were there every day.
I was, and I thought he'd win over 300 the entire time.
You said that.
I did say that, and I wish I had said it. And I also said, once every 4 years, the rest of the country is no longer inundated with what they hear from the mainstream media, and they actually see what the American people actually are thinking instead of what we're being told to think.
Well, if you even listen, this is an opportunity for Democrats to retool their policies, and I'm excited to see some of them actually talking about it, because the pendulum had swung way too far.
It's much better when they stay the way they were, I think.
Well, no, it's bad for the government. It's bad
Let
for
me
the
ask you
country.
this.
Yes.
So Scott Bessent.
Yes.
Like that pick in 333. I hadn't even heard of this, but it sounds good to get it to. Have you seen this?
Deficit.
Yeah, deficit get to 3% of GDP, 3 million additional barrels of oil per day, and 3% GDP growth. Can it be done?
It can be done. But you know what? You can never achieve anything unless you set out a goal and a mission. What was our goal during the last 4 years? What was our deficit supposed to be? What was our growth supposed to be? You put these out so people can focus and attain them. And now people know where to work towards. I like the idea.
But so much to talk about. Who doesn't make it at this point, do you think? Does everyone make it from here, or you think RFK Jr.?
Of the nominees?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early. They got to get out and have the hearings and others. But I think, somebody's always fall. Gates was never going to make it anyways. But the others, I think the country likes what he has picked now. And I think the senators sitting down with him, I think they all have a very good chance of making it.
Tulsi Gabbard makes it. Pete Hegseth makes it.
Yeah, I think Pete makes it. I think Pete's turning the corner. And I think you have to look at Pete in a combination of who's going to be the number two. And this is the way the president thinks. The president looks at, he's going to have a big say in a lot of this, and who's going to be logistically transforming the Defense Department. And he's got a couple names out there that's actually what they look at. And Pete would be doing another job as well.
What do you think of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency?
I love it.
Can we get at some of the, I mean, they lay out, Vivek and Elon lay out all of these issues that sound like massive, massive waste. Is there that much waste there? Can it be stripped out?
Yeah, because when was the last time you looked at it? And we get into these internal fights. It's kind of the challenge that we had when the Soviet Union collapsed. No one member is going to raise their hand and say, close my military base.
Why didn't you do this, Kevin, when you were Speaker of the House?
You know why? Because I proposed it and the president said no. I actually was putting into it that's called a BRAC, a base realignment and closure. This is exactly what we're proposing. This is exactly what we are going forward on. In the debt ceiling, I proposed to the president, because this is the right time to do it. Each party in the Senate nominates someone. They put a plan together, and then you vote it up or vote it down.
Like
no amendments.
Simpson Bowles, but that got voted down, and nothing happened.
Then you have the ability to do it. But now you've got a Vivek and you've got Elon actually making the case at the same time and letting the public in on it. That's the best thing. That's like going into a business and saying, give us your opinion, right? Tell us where there's waste.
Because that will make the public in turn put pressure on the members of Congress to look at ways.
And it's not partisan, so it's not coming from one side, right? And everybody can have an idea. And tell us where it's at. One person doesn't know everything that's happening in government. You really want the people inside and the outside that interact with it. And with technology today, why aren't we utilizing that? Why is it easier to get a car from Uber and rate the driver and rate the person who rides in it than for a veteran to get an appointment for a doctor and rate the doctor? And what you would do is you would slim government, but you'd be more efficient, you'd be more effective, and you would provide a better service to the constituent. And every dollar you save is not government's money.
So
it's
what
the
about all of
taxpayers.
these things that people keep saying, oh, the civil service is not going to be allowed to do that, you can't make as many cuts. But you understand government inside and out, you think it can be done.
Look, what DOGE puts together is not going to be lock barrel, this is what's going, because policymakers have to vote on it. But the structure will dictate the behavior. And if you started inside, the other side would just fight with you, no matter who proposed it. This is on the outside. This is asking the public to come in. The debt has gotten so large, you keep plussing up government every time there was a crisis. I mean, in the debt ceiling, we cut $2 trillion. You thought it was the worst thing on earth. No, you had to go much further, but we could only look at 11% of the entire budget. They walled everything off. Now you can look at everything in a perspective of somebody on the outside and giving us better efficiency. I think that would make the case stronger when you first go in, that it's not partisan. You might not get 100% of it, but I'm telling you, if you get 50% of what they're proposing, the country is in a much stronger position than we were. Yeah, I'm excited by it.
Do you think that with all these different cross currents that were, tariffs were announced, or on day one he's going to try and do some of these things.
Yeah, but did you read what he announced and why? I think this is very important.
Yeah, with immigration and fentanyl. And
Immigration and fentanyl.
I got it.
So what are you saying? It's
But
going
with
to
all
day
these,
one.
I'm just wondering, and with, and Scott Bessent said he's going to get the tax cuts extended and do the no tax on tips, do all those things. Don't a lot of things have to go right for us not to reignite inflation and scare the bond market? Wouldn't you? I'm surprised the bond market keeps, it's very strange the 10-year yield keeps going down because it's supposed to be at 5% by now from fear of Trump.
No, think of this. When he says to stop fentanyl, think what fentanyl is doing. It's the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45.
Right.
But think about the ages between 18 and 45. It's the years you're most productive, the years you reproduce, and the years you serve in the military. It is the most critical time for a nation. So if this is the #1 killer and he's stopping that before he even goes into office.
With the tariff. No one thought that with the tariff. And illegal
that's why you should look
immigration,
at it. Then he's stopping immigration. Will these even go into effect? No, if he's successful, they won't even go into effect. What the president is telling you, he's going to focus on America, but he's going to use every single tool he has in whatever negotiation you're talking about. That's why the world is going to be reset. That's why it's going to be a safer place. And that's why we can attain all those goals we set out. But when you're defending the #1 age generation for the future of the currently serving, and you're stopping what it's all coming directly from China, that's a direct attack on America. That's going after those who serve in the military. It goes after our most productive years. It goes after the years that you reproduce. That's really a big attack on your economy itself. So I wouldn't worry about the bond market. I'd be excited about, yeah, I'm stopping that. So the generation that's doing all the work right now is healthier, more productive, and going to live longer and reproduce.
RFK gets in.
I think he gets in.
Tulsi Gabbard.
I think she gets in. People, look, I've known.
Sounding quieter and quieter over there, Kevin.
No, look, I've known Tulsi a long time. I even went to her wedding, and she was in our workout team. I think Tulsi is misconstrued because she's a quiet person too. But she loves this country. She has served in the military. I watched her, never once complained, but proud of going on what she's doing. And look.
But I think the question is what the Senate thinks.
I don't think the Senate knows her. Right? The Senate doesn't know her. And you've got to think of who she is. She ran for president in a party that attacked her, and she was bold enough to say, no, I'm going to put the country first, and I'll even flip over, right? I'll support the person. She didn't just say, I'm just going to be a Republican. She says, I'm frustrated, I'm not going to give up. And then she watched somebody that would sit down when most Democrats were so afraid to even talk to President Trump. She wasn't afraid to, but she didn't just say, I'm just going to be a Republican. No, she said, I'm going to help you because it's the right thing to do. That's a good quality.
Mr. McCarthy, you want me to still call you Mr. Speaker? You've left that life behind.
Hey, once you're speaker, there's only been 56
I know
of us.
that. I know.
I want 15 rounds to get it. I want to keep it.
All right, Mr. Speaker. All right, Mr. Speaker. I just think you like your new gig better than the old gig.
You know what I like? I like coming, seeing you.
Well, you are welcome to come.
I don't know. I took Andrew's seat. I didn't go a little liberal. It was pretty good.
Yeah, you did all right. You might have gone a little bit. I've always said that about you. A little.
No,
didn't you like Paul Ryan a lot? You were friends with him, right?
Look,
that rubs off on you. Rhino.
You know what? You can never have too many friends in this world.
You're right.
And Paul is not. Paul is a conservative.
Please. All right. Well, thank you. Good to have you on.
All right.